What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So at the beginning of last week, Nintendo unveiled the Switch OLED model, and later on they even had press put out some of their previews and impressions around hands-on time they had with the system. So if you're looking at all of this and you've decided, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and pick up one of those Switch OLED models, you're probably hanging out waiting for pre-order pages to go live, which, go figure, it looks like scalpers have already managed to mark up this system online. We'll talk about that one. Also, we are going to be talking about the retro gaming market and how it's gotten absolutely out of control now, with a couple of auctions around sealed games concluding, one of them even cracking the $1 million mark. And we're also going to talk about new rumors popping up around Microsoft and a potential major studio acquisition. Guys, if you enjoyed these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with Death Stranding Director's Cut. This is a game that had a ton of information put out during this most recent state of play. And that includes new story elements, a bunch of items, which includes this really large catapult, as well as new graphical features. Of course, it's gonna look and run better on the PS5. However, during a video going over these features, they mentioned ultra widescreen support, which is a bit surprising because we don't typically see that from consoles, let alone the PS5 that doesn't even support something like 1440p, but they mentioned it. So now everyone's kind of wondering, how are they going to do this? Is Sony going to just enable a resolution specifically for Death Stranding Director's Cut? Most likely they'll do some kind of tricks to make this happen. They could put like black bars around the bottom or the top, or do some sort of zoom effect. There are some things that could happen here to make this work. And based on what they did on PC, where they had a strange resolution for their own ultra widescreen support, I'm sure Kojima could make it work in that regard. So I guess what we'll do is, as we get closer to the game releasing, we'll probably hear about it in a review, or who knows, day one, we might just load it up and try it out for ourselves to see what it's about. Also, another game we saw quite a bit about during this state of play was Deathloop. In that long gameplay trailer towards the end, there was some fine print that mentioned its timed exclusivity status, as well as even a date for when it could go to other consoles. Other consoles probably just being the Xbox. We can head over here. This is Twisted Voxel saying, it then mentions September 14th, 2022 as a tentative date where it can be possibly released on other consoles. Now, it says tentatively, and that reminds me of maybe the Final Fantasy VII Remake situation, where that had fine print. The base said, hey, 1 year after this game is out, it'll lose its timed exclusivity and could go to PC or the Xbox. It's pretty clear by now that Sony negotiated some extension to that timed exclusivity, as it's now just on the PS5, so it hasn't gone anywhere else other than PlayStation consoles. This one might be a little harder for Sony to negotiate an extension there, as they'd be dealing with Microsoft. And trust me, Microsoft is looking at that September 14th, 2022, and is like, all right, the 15th, it's going on Game Pass and it's going to the Xbox and or it's already on PC, but like Game Pass, PC, all of that, all at once through the cloud. That's just another thing they can use to push Game Pass subscriptions. That's really what they're about right now. So in this case, yeah, I'm looking at this thinking, okay, in a year, we'll see Deathloop most likely on the Xbox. Oh, and we do have Sonic Colors Ultimate coming up here in the first week of September, and we had a new trailer that was released going over some of the features and kind of detailing things like graphical additions and even some new modes, and we can see it here, which it does even compare it to the Wii version, which is cool. I mean, the Wii version at the time, yes, it was on less standard definition system. It still looked pretty cool. Looks even better, obviously, here with 60 FPS, revamped lighting, improved graphics, and 4K resolution. It's going to look better on any of these systems, but obviously the PS5 and the Series X is where it's going to look really, really good. They also detailed the new mode, that's Rival Rush, where you go head-to-head with Metal Sonic, and you'll be able to unlock some cool rewards and all this. And they even talk about park tokens and customization, where you head to the store and use park tokens to unlock unique boosts, auras, shoes, and gloves, so different items for Sonic there. And they also go over the fully remixed soundtrack. So I'm looking forward to playing Sonic Colors again, as I did play it on the Wii, but from some of the visuals they've shown here, it's going to translate very well to current platforms, and some of the extra features and modes, really cool to see that. So looking forward to Sonic Colors here coming up in September. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this Nintendo Switch OLED model coming out in October, actually the same day as Metroid Dread. Seems Nintendo wants Sean to play Balan Wonderworld as much as the rest of us, but we did see some hands-on previews go up. One in particular was very well done by IGN and Tom Marks, where he went went through all of the features that are being added, and yeah, it's mostly for handheld gamers when it comes to the Switch. Not a lot there if you're someone who primarily plays in docked, outside of the new dock, which you can buy separately. And yeah, Tom Marks did mention, hey, the dock looks better, it even like feels better, higher quality, it has that Ethernet port there. Just remember, you are losing that USB port in place of that LAN port, so just keep that one in mind. But outside of that, going over things like the OLED display, it is a night and day difference according there to IGN. Even a pretty good comparison from the Game Boy Advance SP when they had the original front-lit model, going from that to the backlit model, and that was a massive difference as it looked very much like the DS Lite screen. So yeah, going from what we have right now with the Switch LCD to the OLED, it's gonna be a big difference. Not even just like the size, just the clarity and how vibrant the colors and everything on that OLED display will look. So if you're a handheld gamer, mostly with your Switch, and you don't really play dock that much, this would be a pretty large upgrade for you, going from the older screen to the newer one. And the kickstand was also mentioned. It does feel higher quality, even like when it's closed up, the body itself feels higher quality, but it was kind of talked about similar to what we have with like the Surface kind of stand on the back there. Significantly better, obviously. I mean, I don't think it get any worse than the current kickstand we have now on the Switch. Now from there, I have seen some people online say, it's probably not gonna sell that well, as people are saying, I'm gonna bypass this one and hope that another model is coming down the road at some point, maybe next year. But I'm gonna tell you now, this thing is gonna sell very, very well over the holiday season, and it already looks like people are starting to mark these things up on eBay, which leads to some other questions, by the way. From what I remember with eBay, you have to have the item, like you can't have a ticket to then buy the item like an IOU, but nonetheless, they're up there on eBay. You can see these here, with a couple of them going for over $700. One in particular has 10 watchers at $711, another $43 in shipping. This one's from Germany. Some of these appear to be like game receipts, so pre-orders through game. I guess they just started taking pre-orders just whenever they wanted, as we're still waiting for pre-orders to officially go live. Nintendo should be announcing when that's going to happen, and we'll see GameStop start to take pre-orders, and Amazon and other places, they'll go up for listings. And some of these have already concluded. I don't know if that's, hey, we're going to pull this down, but some are under sold listings for north of $600 right now. Remember, this is a $350 MSRP item, nearly doubling in price already ahead of pre-orders going live. And then yes, many of them will flood in here, and this is going to be a system that will be scalped and resold quite heavily this holiday. It's going to be the new piece of hardware. So while PS5s and all this are still being marked up, the Switch OLED model is probably going to jump to the top of that list for what scalpers and bots are going to be looking for online. And the biggest reason I'm bringing this up to you now is some people are kind of hanging back saying, it's not going to be that hard to get. This is going to be hard to get. So I would tell you now, keep an eye out for pre-order information. I'll keep you guys up to date here as well. That way we can all go to the website and fight with the bots together. Next up, let's talk about the retro gaming marketplace here, because it is absolutely out of control. We talked about some of these sealed games that were graded and going up on places like Heritage Auction and having some outlandish bids thrown on it. Remember that Super Mario Brothers cartridge that sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, being the most expensive game to ever sell? And you're not going to open and play it, so I mean, you're going to buy it, put it up somewhere, and hope that it continues to grow in value. Well, you know what? Whoever bought that Mario cartridge, I mean, they might be onto something here, because it seems like these retro games are continuing to grow in value more than you would expect. And to be honest, more than makes sense right now, because that Legend of Zelda cartridge that we had talked about last week, it was something like a little over $100,000, did finish up. And it finished up for way more than I think most people were thinking it would. Take a look at this here. That's right. It ended up selling for $870,000, and it appears that the person who won is remaining anonymous here. And again, I'm looking at this. I mean, it's a 9. It's pretty good, for gradings on these games. It's sealed up. It's supposed to be a rarer version of the Legend of Zelda, and that's fine. But like, these values are going up and up and up, and then another one popped up. This one was very weird. It's a copy of Super Mario 64. All right, it's sealed. It's set up at a 9.8, and you're thinking, okay, is this going to get to that $870,000 mark? No. Try almost twice that. It sold for $1.56 million. And I honestly have no idea why, because I'm looking at Super Mario 64. Is that even that rare of a game? I mean, it's from the Nintendo 64 era. I know when we go back to the NES, we're going, back to the mid 80s for some of these games. But like Super Mario 64 is older, but it doesn't feel like it should be that rare. I mean, sure, maybe it could be a misprinted label or something there. It doesn't look like it. It looks like it's just a sealed, graded Nintendo 64 game, which does make me wonder what's going on here exactly? And there are some thoughts and some theories online as to the video game space getting kind of pumped up right now with some of these sealed auctions, because as I mentioned before, as these continue to sell at these very high prices, it's gonna start pulling up just regular games. Like if you have a copy of Mario 64 and you just watch this thing sell for $1.5 million, you're gonna think it's worth a couple hundred or something at least. I mean, yeah, it's open and it's out of the box, but it's still good. It's still Super Mario 64. It's possible that we could see that the marketplace is getting kind of pumped up with some of these auctions that are, I mean, well advertised, right? That's being passed around a lot, and it's these big headlines to where I see it catching mainstream attention from all types of places. Yahoo, CNN, Fox, all the big media outlets are covering it too. So it does make you wonder if we are going to get to a point where the retro bubble really inflates and then it like just bursts completely, because are we going to get to a world where N64 cartridges that are common are like $30, $40? I'm talking like sports titles even. Like these Mario 64s are hundreds of dollars. That would be very strange. Definitely not a great place to be if you're someone just trying to collect some of your childhood favorite games. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft and more rumors around studio acquisitions. And it's something we kind of expect out of Microsoft at this point. We just expect them to show up and say, yeah, we bought this studio, because we know Microsoft is continuing to add more and more studios, more and more IPs underneath their Microsoft Game Studios umbrella. So they continue doing release after release after release for Game Pass to help hold up that subscription service as more and more content is demanded as they continue to build that overall user and install base. So when we start to hear that Warner Bros. Is going through a whole thing with mergers and stuff, and they have these studios that are kind of almost in limbo, it feels like, it's not surprising to start hearing rumors around Microsoft maybe looking into this. Let's head over here. This was at The Gamer, where they say, talking on his podcast, the Xbox 2 Corden claims that both NetherRealm and TT are among the studios that Warner Bros. Considers selling in the document. This would include all TT Games subsidiaries. The documents apparently do not suggest who would be interested in acquiring these prolific companies. However, rumors from last month had Microsoft down as a potential buyer, which would not be surprising given its recent spending spree race with Sony. However, we do have an update here. This from Warner Bros. Remy contacted The Gamer in response to the rumors, saying, I can confirm NetherRealm Studios and TT Games will continue to remain a part of Warner Bros. Games, and all are included in the Warner Media Discovery merger. So that seems like a pretty standard PR response. It's like, oh yeah, they're gonna stay with us for now, kind of, as we work through these deals. Like, they're not just gonna announce, say, yeah, we're talking with Microsoft, they're gonna come buy them. No, I'm sure if this is happening, the deal is still being worked out, they're coming to terms. I mean, we saw how long it took for Bethesda and ZeniMax and all of that to go through. That was a bigger acquisition, obviously, than this, but still, having NetherRealm or TT Games kind of be up here for at least negotiations is a pretty big deal if Microsoft can actually get in there and make it all work. NetherRealms is probably the bigger one. I think that's what most people are going to look at, because I assume they would come with Mortal Kombat, and they have the ability to create different fighting games, which is something Microsoft has mentioned before with Killer Instinct. Phil Spencer had talked about this previously, that they would like to do Killer Instinct, but they don't have anyone who can make Killer Instinct. Now, could NetherRealm do it? I mean, it's probably their best shot as to what's available to them right now. I don't know if they'd be able to make what we had previously with the last Killer Instinct, but they could make their own take on it. I'd be curious to see how fans would react to that one. Or they could show up and say, yeah, let's just make another Mortal Kombat. It sells very well and would go along pretty well, I would say, in Game Pass. TT Games does like a lot of the Lego games, so I'm sure they could show up with Microsoft and make maybe something that Microsoft has with different IPs or their own game in general. But either one of these would be a good acquisition for Microsoft to make, with, I would say, NetherRealm being the biggest one. Like I said, there are rumors currently, but it wouldn't surprise me with everything that's going on at Warner Bros. With like the different mergers and stuff that's happening, that they would kind of look around and say, do we really want to like run a video game studio and all of this? And they go, we'll just kind of pass it off. And then here's Microsoft. So that's the big one right now, is keep an eye, I would say, on NetherRealm and see if Microsoft can maybe close a deal on this. And in our last bit of news, let's go back to the talk around Xbox Live Gold and its potential for just going away. We know Game Pass has been growing substantially, with Game Pass Ultimate being north of 20 million users from what we heard last. So the idea of Xbox Live Gold kind of running alongside it seems redundant at this point, as it at least looks like more and more people are moving over to Game Pass Ultimate. We had this weird thing that took place where Microsoft doubled the price of Xbox Live Gold, and while most of us are still unsure as to why that happened, one of the theories is that they were trying to really just strong-arm people to Game Pass Ultimate, and it was reversed in like 24 hours. So it didn't seem to work out for them if that was their plan there. But it does look like Jeff Grubb talked a bit more about the idea of Xbox Live Gold going away on his podcast. This from Jeff saying, in the past, I said Xbox Live Gold is going to go away. And when I started saying that, it was when Xbox Live Gold was still required for free-to-play games. And I knew for a fact that they were going to make a change before Halo Infinite. And I thought at least it would be dropped for free-to-play games, because they weren't going to charge people to play Halo on Xbox when they weren't charging you to play it on PC or whatever. Then they decided to raise the price, and it looked weird, right? Why would they do that if they were going to get rid of Xbox Live Gold? I just wanted to reiterate, Xbox Live Gold is still on a board somewhere saying this is going to go away at some point. Whether or not they're actively talking about it right now, I don't know, but they still have it on a roadmap saying Xbox Live Gold will be dropped at some point in the future. And yeah, I believe that if Game Pass continues to grow and gets to a certain number, yeah, it'll probably go away. Xbox Live Gold, that is. And what is that number? It's hard to say. I mentioned that at one point, and some people said, 40, maybe 50, maybe 60 million. I don't think anyone really knows the number, but I think around that would be correct. Xbox Live Gold, I know Microsoft counts basically anyone who signs into Xbox Live in general. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a paid account. Like if you sign in to Xbox Live, I guess using like your Switch through Minecraft, I assume they're counting you there. So if Game Pass gets to a point where it's above even the ones they're counting for free, and it is like 50 or 60 million, there's no point in having Xbox Live Gold. And you know what? I would like to see that. Like, and that's not even like, oh, you have to have Game Pass Ultimate to play online. No. Like, that's just free. Like, you just go online and you can play any of these games like Halo Infinite without needing a subscription service. And the reason I'd like to see that is because then it would put pressure on Sony and even Nintendo to do the same. And it's weird because Microsoft would be the one who started the whole thing where you have to pay to play online, and then they'd also be the ones that come back to end it. We'll see. Again, it depends on how Xbox Game Pass continues to grow, but let's say they make a studio acquisition like NetherRealms, and some of these bigger games continue to hit when it comes to things like Halo Infinite, and it comes to Forza and Fable and Perfect Dark, and they start to really ramp up their output, and Game Pass grows, maybe Xbox Live Gold does go away. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, do you think Microsoft will drop Xbox Live Gold membership by the end of 2022? 50% of you said yes, Game Pass will grow enough for them to do it. 33% said no, that's too much recurring money they would get rid of. And then 16% of you said it'll happen, but after 2022. Very possible, because their number could be 100 million users, right, for Game Pass in order to get rid of Xbox Live Gold and just kind of give up that money. That's the biggest thing that people are hung up on, is why would they get rid of Xbox Live Gold if, say, 30 or 40 million people are still paying $60 a year? And the biggest part with that is it's still some sort of barrier that people may look at as to saying, well, I'm not going to really play some of these games because there's that subscription fee in the way to do online gameplay. Microsoft just wants you on their service at this point, and that'd be Game Pass, and hey, just getting you onto the system and into their ecosystem is like the first step. Then they can try to throw those $1 Game Pass deals at you, and then all of a sudden, hey, you're locked into Game Pass, going forward for so many months or whatever. So that's really Microsoft's biggest focus now. I think Xbox Live Gold at this point to Microsoft is more short-term, whereas Game Pass is way more long-term. We're talking like 10 or 20 years. And yeah, like I said, I don't necessarily think Xbox Live Gold is in it for the long run for Microsoft. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Mothman saying, sounds less like competitive pricing on the special edition and more like competitive pricing on the standard edition. Wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people get the standard Metroid Dread sent to them. That would annoy a lot of people, myself included, because I would rather them tell me right now, that being Walmart, that I've just been downgraded to the standard edition and I want to look around for a special edition elsewhere, rather than them just ship me out a standard edition with Metroid Dread. That'd be very frustrating at that point. So here's hoping that's not the case. It's very odd because it still says special edition. I've checked again very recently. It's just marked down like 30 some odd dollars, which you're right, does fall in line with the standard edition. So again, at this point, I'm just crossing my fingers hoping that that special edition will show up on release day. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was that Switch OLED model? Are you gonna try to pick one up on release day? You're gonna try to go for these pre-orders and fight these bots? Let me know about that one. And then also, what about this video game retro marketplace where we have some of these games going for hundreds of thousands of dollars, with one even breaking the $1 million mark? And then what about this whole thing with Microsoft and NetherRealm or TT Games and Warner Bros? Do you think Microsoft makes a move on one of those studios? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.